Eventually done gazing at the Eiffel Tower, Wendy looked up. She was a little surprised to see that she was in some sort of nest or cocoon made out of the bodies of the hundreds of thysolits. They ignored their unwary stranger as they droned and flew to their eventual nighttime destination, was taking her with them. The frustrated jingles of Tinkerbell were soft and fading as the little fairy tried to force her way from the outside. Excuse me, Wendy addressed the bees, leaning forward. Those making up her seat underneath shifted themselves obligingly to be better to support her new position. I don't mean to be rude, but my friend would like me to come too. The thysolits in front of them turned themselves slightly so they could see all their thoraxes, all of their moments. Neatly lined up Paris, the Shivo twins, St. Petersburg, New York City, the bookseller's nephew, Thorn. The smell of honey grew stronger. Oh, look, Wendy said, look at it all. It's like 1,000 little plays, just for me. Every once in a while, as if somehow sensing she had finished watching a scene, a thysolit would gracefully exit its place and another would come to fill in with new image or scene. How thoughtful of them, Wendy said dreamily. I just came to sit here and watch. Don't lift a finger. Ouch! Finally, having shoved her way through the wall of bees and apparently out of options, Tinkerbell resorted to the last trick of the fairies. She sank her sharp little teeth into Wendy's arm, forcefully enough to summon bright drops of blood. Tinkerbell, you... But the pain cleared her head. The smell of blood was stronger than honey. Wendy took a fresh look at the scene around her through slightly more wakeful eyes. Thysolits everywhere, completely caging her. I'm surrounded by a bunch of bees with pictures in their bottoms, and they've kidnapped me, she said slowly. Tinkerbell decided a little extra nip would drive the point home. Wendy didn't really react, though thoughtlessly scratching both wounds. Yes, you told me so. I really could have sat here forever trying to satisfy my curiosity. They would have kept finding something else to pique my interest, to make me continue, and I would have been lost. A supple kind of poison indeed. They promise to show you the world, but just sort of hypnotize you while life goes on without you. What would they done with me ultimately, do you think? Tinkerbell shrugged. Something not good? As succinct and correct as always, shall we? Concentrating on flying the normal way. Ha, normal. As if flying had been normal a week ago. Wendy tried to take part of the bees like a curtain. When Tinkerbell didn't bother with such niceties, kicking them in their rear ends and punching them in their seats. Or punching them in their eyes, which actually seemed to be a better tactic because the thysolits resisted Wendy's efforts utterly, pushing them back with a force she didn't believe insects should have. Let me out, she cried, finally resorting to kicks. The wall of bees opened and enveloped her leg, covering it with combined weight. This threw her awkwardly off balance. She flayed and swayed and swung her arms, trying to regain herself. Concentrating and tipping only a little, she managed to draw her a little dagger from its necklace sheath. Don't make me use this. No reaction. She might as well have been talking to a bunch of, bees. Feeling a little guilty about the violence, Wendy swept her arm through out with a knife diagonally, her thumb on its top, like she was sawing off a tip of old cloth. The blade slipped harmlessly in between the first thysolit, who moved slowly out of its way, and then caught and sank into the bodies of those who couldn't or wouldn't escape. The result was immediate. A black and amber ichor began to pour out of the torn bee bodies. The smell of honey became overwhelming, sickening. The humming changed. It was no longer drowsy, but growling and angry. The swarm turned and dove at her face. Wendy screamed. She tried to kick them out of the way, now using her dagger like a badminton racket, but they didn't bounce away lightly like a shuttlecock. Every time she injured one, it stuck out the dagger like thick honey, and she had to choose it before defending herself from another one. Tinkerbell, are you all right? What are you doing? The jingles that came back were angry and loud, but otherwise unintelligible. The things were now bludgeoning Wendy's body hard enough to leave bruises. Let's just push our way through. Maybe we can outpace them. Wendy covered her face with her arms and, pointing her dagger before her, flew upward in the thick of the swarm, hopefully where they at least suspected it to go. She burst in the clear night air, shredding bees like ugly raindrops. Tinkerbell zoomed through the path she made and appeared by her side, disheveled and a little scratched, but red with anger and ready to go. "Come on this way!" Wendy pointed south because that's the way the pirate ship had been heading. At least she thought it was south. She was turned around with one of the bees, and there were no points of reference from which to take her bearings. Ursa Major didn't look quite right, and there were no moons at all. The two girls spread their arms and took off in the wind, and then Wendy looked behind her. The swarm had caught on to their escape plans. Like strange yellow and orange tornado, they crowded together and rushed at the two girls. "Back this way," Wendy cried, pointing. Tinkerbell nodded, understanding immediately. They dove under the swarm. Momentum, and insect stupidity, continued the bees forward, now the wrong way, away from the two girls. But it wasn't long before they righted themselves and were in pursuit again. "All right, hide in the clouds," Wendy suggested, but there were none now. The storm had finished, and it was a perfectly clear night, not a wisp in sight. "I don't think we can outrun them." Tinkerbell jingled gold sadly. "This is why they're so dangerous. They're relentless. Once the colony is on the warpath, they will never let up." "Surely there must be some escape," Wendy said, looking around desperately for a mountain or a cave or some sort of answer to present itself. "This isn't London. You can't escape Neverland the way you could escape your life in the city." "I feel like we should revisit this theme later, and less ironically," Wendy muttered. "Alas, also, ouch. All right, I suppose it's fisticuffs then?" She tried to ready herself for the clash, putting her arms up the way she imagined a boxer might, but with her dagger out. The bees came, their hum and bodies filling the sky to the horizon. "They never actually sting," Wendy reminded herself bravely. "They just had numbers and mass. They didn't stop from being utterly terrifying when they hit. They slammed into over her body. She could barely get a breath in between blows, which came like a massive fuzzy hailstorm. Their droning drowned all her thoughts. She tried her badminton strategy again, using the length of her arm and dagger together as one weapon, connecting with as many bees as she could with each blow. This was moderately successful, at least for knocking them away, if not actually killing them. Still, they kept coming. One clocked her in the head so badly she saw stars. She fell spiraling to earth. Only Tinkerbell's quick response and tiny hands on her guided Wendy back to remember which way was up. 100, 1,000 bees were waiting for her when she returned to battle. Her arm throbbed. Her left eye swelled almost shut. Her stomach ached from the angry purple bruises that now covered. Without her shadow, Wendy's reserves were depleted quickly. And they just kept coming. Every time she thought she had done enough, that she and Tinkerbell had killed enough of the creatures, it would just fly away, only be pursued twice angrily by the remainders. They never gave up. Hit, block, hit, drop. Hit, block, hit, drop. It was clear there was no escaping, no flying away, no resting, no stopping for a breath, no doing anything else until the last bee was gone. Wendy dispatched the thysolits one after the other without thought, sending their waning lights and broken bodies down to earth. The whole thing was less likely a heroic battle than scullery work. Endless scrubbing a room full of dirt and grime that would give them the chance to kill her. She couldn't turn her attention away long enough for a glance at Tinkerbell. She heard encouraging jingles now and then and knew the fairy was doing the best she could. Maybe one thysolit for every dozen or two of her own. Eventually exhaustion wore even the terror whisper thin. She lost her fear of falling and dying. The star wheeled overhead in a way that would make little sense. The moons never rose. Nothing Wendy had ever done in her life, not the most menial, boring household task had ever lasted this long, or required such continual strength. Such burned in her muscle as she lifted her arm, hit, dropped her arm, lifted, hit, and dropped. She barely noticed when there were only a dozen thysolits left. She had begun to sink slowly groundward, losing whatever it was that kept her alive afloat with fairy dust. I can't fly, Tinkerbell. The little fairy grabbed her by the hand while kicking a bee hard in its mandibles. Her touch helped but didn't stop the fall, so she guided Wendy's descent into the little boat where the human girl crumpled into a ball. Tinkerbell defended her there, valiantly trying to thrive off the last few bees. One final thought occurred to Wendy before she passed out. They don't talk about this in adventures. This being a hero is just work. Boring work. Endless work. Nothing more. And that's the end of that chapter. See you later.